What's up, Cine D-Bags? This is Vu of Vu Films, back with another video. And today, I want to be talking about what makes a shot or a video cinematic. And I'll tell you what's not cinematic. It's this shot right here. And of course, this audio. This audio is currently complete trash because I am in my house, in my morning room. My house is hardwood. My table is hardwood. It's just blank walls, and I have an animal that I am currently babysitting while filming a YouTube video. That just goes to show the absolute level of poor parenting that I'm displaying right now. And on top of just the bad audio quality, you'll be hearing him walking around dropping toys, things of that nature throughout the video. So I apologize for that, and I don't apologize for that. And the camera just got bumped, and it got bumped again. Stop it. All right, I'm back after fixing the tripod, and he's currently on his chair watching some cartoons. So you'll probably hear a little bit of cartoon noise. Hopefully not, if this mic is as unidirectional as advertised. So what makes footage cinematic? When I first started back in 2014, what I thought was cinematic was bokeh, shallow depth of field. And it's still part of my definition of what makes something looks more cinematic. Because I'm a bokeh douchebag, bokeh hoe, bokeh skank, whatever you want to call me. I love me some bokeh. But with that said, there is a lot of things that goes into a shot that makes it cinematic. When you watch movies these days, you will see that a lot of higher end films, more big budget films, is shot in anamorphic. So one of the things that defines what we see as cinematic is an anamorphic lens, which is what I'm using right now on my 50mm G Master. I'm using the Moment 1.33 times anamorphic adapter, and it's on my 50mm G Master lens. Currently set at f2, and the way you focus with the Moment anamorphic adapter is you have to set the base lens, which is my 50, at infinity focus, and focus using the Moment adapter. Obviously, I'm using my Sony FX3. It has autofocus, and so does the 50mm GM. I actually just leave the autofocus on to help me get that perfect focus. And then I'll manually focus with the Moment lens to get to where I need to be, because it has to be generally focused in the right distance for the autofocus to get that really, really accurate focus. And then once I've noticed that it is in as focus as possible, I just lock off the lens to manual focus. And right now it should be focused right here, hopefully. And of course, like I said earlier, I'm a bokeh hoe, so I have it at f2. I could do f5.6, but then I'll look like I'm shooting on Micro Four Thirds or some shit. So I'm not about that life. So hopefully I'm in focus. But again, there's a lot of things that goes into a cinematic shot. I am trying my best to get some type of cinematic look right now. And obviously there's composition, there's lighting, there's color grading, there is dynamic range, the whole plethora of things to look at that makes a shot or a movie or a video look cinematic. And by that, it just means that it looks like something that you walked into a movie theater to watch for $19.99, popcorn, everything. And if you're on a hot date, happy ending at the same time, hopefully. Again, like I said, when I first started, I thought shallow depth of field was the baseline thing that you would need to make something look more cinematic. But as I've grown in my craft, I've realized that the most important thing is actually highlights that are not blown out. If you watch a lot of wedding videographers and the ones that shoot straight out of camera colors or shoot in a non-high dynamic range profile, such as S-Log3, which is what I'm shooting now, they have a tendency to blow out their highlights, meaning if they're filming something that's backlit, maybe with the sky in the back, they will expose for the subject, which is the wedding couple, their skin tones and all that stuff, and freely just blow out the background. Or if shooting around windows, so just blow out the highlights in the windows. And to me, that is what makes things look not cinematic. That makes it look more like video. I don't care if you're at 180-degree shutter angle. I don't care how much bokeh you have in that shot. If you have a ton of just clipped highlights, that is automatic, like a no-go for me. So the past few years, I've been really focusing on trying to get my exposure even across the frame as much as possible, which is why I prefer to use Sony cameras, because the FX3 has 13 stops or so of usable dynamic range, and most of that is in the highlights. There's a lot of highlight control with S-Log3, and that's another reason why I don't use Canon, because colors can be adjusted, right? A lot of guys love color Canon science, and that's fine. I don't really care for it. Colors and stuff is subjective. You can grade that if you know what you're doing and you're shooting a log, but dynamic range is something that the sensor handles on its own, and if you don't have that, there's nothing you can do about it. This is coming from other Canon shooters, whether it be Canon shooters I know or Canon shooters on YouTube. Canon can be a little bit questionable in the highlight dynamic range department. And of course, even this shot here is not perfect. This is all, you can see there's some blown out leaves back here that there's nothing I could do about it. And actually my eyes, looking at it now, my eyes can't even retain detail in those leaves. So there's no way the camera can. The way I'm filming this shot right now actually requires a massive light. And because I'm a douchebag piece of trash wannabe cinematographer, you could see the reflection of the damn softbox with the grid right here. You probably noticed already. I'm sorry, or you've probably been distracted by all of this reverb. But yeah, I had this huge softbox, I think 120 centimeters or whatever, softbox from Came TV, and it has a grid on it. Now, in order for me to have enough power to get myself lit on this side, and also keeping the background, which is high noon right now, exposed properly and not blown out, I'm using the Came TV 660B Beast Mode light. Came TV sent this light to me like, embarrassingly, probably like over 6 months ago. They asked me to do a review and test it out, and I just haven't, because a lot of times there's no use for a light this bright. Most of the time, YouTube D-bags, corporate interviews, things of the nature, you probably just need something like this. This Juin Molis 100 watt light, I think it's 100 watt. But anyway, this is usually bright enough for you to just put a light right here with the softbox, whatever, and get good interview with Rembrandt, typical corporate commercial douchebaggery type of shot. But in a situation where you're trying to light against the sun, you need an even brighter light than this, as bright as this is. And that's why in this situation, I'm finally using the Came TV 660B with the softbox to provide this bright as hell light. I'm not sure exactly what wattage the 660B is. I'll put it right here, but it is bright, and I think the light itself is around $1,200. This is a bi-color light, which means you could go from 6,500 all the way down to 3,000 or something like that. More accurate information here, because I'm again a trash YouTuber and I didn't look at the complete specs before I turned on this recorder. I was busy worrying about other things, such as the wildness that is my child and just getting this shot. As crappy as this audio sounds, it is not the microphone's fault. I'm currently using the Kamika VM30 wireless shotgun mic, which is it's a shotgun mic that is completely wireless, and it is clamped up here on my kitchen or morning room chandelier using a Ulanzi magic arm, I guess is what you would call it. And yeah, as you can see, the shotgun mic is completely by itself. It is not wired to anything. It's not connected to any other additional transmitter. It itself is a transmitter, and it is currently transmitting the sound to the receiver mounted on my Sony FX3. And just to get this shot alone, I mean, I'm using all kinds of crap. Obviously, I'm using the light, the mic, but again, I'm using the Moment Anamorphic Lens Adapter. Again, I'm using the Moment Anamorphic Lens Adapter on my 50mm G Master lens. And I also have a Frigo Versatile filter kit with a mist with the 1/8 mist insert on the lens to create even more diffused look, even though, you know, this is just a testament of how sharp the Sony G Master lens is. I have an adapter on the lens, and, you know, that should soften it up. But I also included an additional mist filter to soften it up even more, and it is still pretty damn sharp, which is amazing. I also like the overall look of this Moment adapter. You know, the flares are nice and oval, and a lot of this swirls is actually from the G Master lens itself. It's just that the anamorphic lens exaggerates the swirls even more. And when there is flaring on this lens, it is whatever the color of the light is. So it's not that blue Sue lens that everyone knows about. That not the best look. So it's great that this lens just takes whatever color, temperature of the light source, and that's the flare color that you get. Surprisingly, as heavy as all this is, the FX3 with the Ulanzi cage, the FX3 with the Ulanzi Falcam cage, with the 50mm G Master, which is not exactly the lightest lens in the world, with the 2-pound-ish adapter. It's actually just sitting on a travel tripod from Ulanzi as well. It's just the Ulanzi Photo Pro Falcam 38 F38 carbon fiber travel tripod, and this tripod is handling it no problem. So there's that. A bunch of items I just advertised on this video for you to click on the links in the description to buy. Hands down, the most important thing to make footage cinematic is to have dynamic range, especially in the highlights, because you could crush shadows and you could still get a dramatic look, right? You watch a lot of movies, you see a lot of silhouettes, a lot of darker shadows, but you will never see highlights blown out. There's very minimal things in a particular shot in a movie that is completely clipped. It's usually very tiny. It is usually limited to maybe some of these leaves over here, the way I have it, but you will never see just straight clipped highlights. They always, high-end films, you always see, they do everything they can to alleviate that. That's why you always see detail in the sky. To me, as a wedding videographer, filmmaker, cinematographer, as a corporate, commercial, documentary videographer, cinematographer, I am trying to get my footage to look as much like what you see in a Hollywood big budget film as possible, using the gear that I have and the crew that I have, which is just me and, you know, my co-cinematographer, second shooter. And of course, you know, I have to have my composition. I have to have my nice shallow depth of field to isolate the subject to help tell the story. I have to have my lighting. I have to have my audio. I have to have proper white balance. I have to have good color grading that is not straight out of camera colors, that produces contrast or conveying a certain theme I'm trying to convey with the film. Again, most importantly, retaining highlight detail, lighting the scene. That is shooting S-Log3 on my Sony cameras to make sure I have the most dynamic range in those highlights, so that when I'm color grading, I can make sure I do everything I can to retain those highlight details. And that includes masking off the subject in the shadows and brightening them up, to make sure they are exposed properly, the sky or like the bright highlights are exposed properly, and the overall scene has nice even exposure. Anyways, hope you learned something. I hope it was interesting. But until next time, click on all of the links in the description to buy everything that I mentioned in this video, and lighten up.
Hey man, what that with your camera?
It's a Jewel Weibo 3S. It has this ergonomic wrist rest, perfect for guys like you who are lonely, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh my god, that Chinese rat. If you want to be the best, if you want to be professional, if you want to be award-winning, you need to buy the $2,200 Ari Alexa. It's the Panasonic X5 Mark II X.
Still living life with alternative facts, I see.
It have anamorphic discrete. It have open gray. It have the best eye, but much better than the gimbal.
Bro, doesn't it have a bunch of rolling shutter?
Let me show you.
I've seen less rolling at a Japanese restaurant.
By my professional organic shape masterclass, only $29.99.